All right. So let's get started. We had about 40 registrants, but things happen. So we're just going to go ahead and start. Before we introduce ourselves, I want to welcome you all to the challenge. So hopefully by the end of 6 days, you will have an idea that you can then execute it to a point where you would be able to build your entire tarot deck. I'm Siddharth Ramakrishnan. I'm a neuroscientist, and I kind of dove into the tarot realm because I was thinking about how brains function and what kind of methodologies we use in the brain to kind of process tarot images. So that's kind of how I started getting into tarot. And then that just spanned into designing my own deck. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. This exercise is really cool. So, because we have a few participants, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves and maybe set an intention, like who you are and what your intention is with this workshop, maybe. We can start with Anna.
Sure. Hi.
Hi.
So I'm Anna, and the intention really is for creativity. And I do read tarot. Like
Okay.
I read them for people. Like I don't use a book or whatever. So I'm quite familiar. I only really do the Rider-Waite tarot deck though. And so I thought this would be, I saw you come by through a friend of mine on Facebook, and I thought, well, I have some time on Saturday, so here I am. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Erin, you want to go?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Erin. I'm pretty new to tarot. I've just kind of, done it a little bit, but I have to use the book. And I think my intention is just to tap into some intuition. And I don't consider myself an illustrator. So just being kind and compassionate with myself with that. And yeah, just tapping into some creativity.
I completely understand. I don't have an illustration background. I kind of just said, you know what, I'm just going to try it and see what happens, and things just fell into place. And I think if you gave my deck to a designer, they'll be like, oh, I would change all this stuff, but it's okay. Hi, Victoria. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Victoria Vesna, and I am an artist who collaborates with scientists, including Siddharth Ramakrishnan. And I'm very excited about this new project that he has, and I'm here to learn and to support.
Hi, Tiana. Tiana, if you joined us late, we're just introducing ourselves and setting an intention.
Yeah, sure, sir. Am I audible?
Could you repeat? You broke up.
Hello?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah. Um, Good evening, everyone. I'm Shana from India, and I would like to know about it because I'm completely new, and I just like the concept of tarot reading, and just looking forward to it.
All right. So thank you all for joining these recordings. The meeting is being recorded, and we'll put it up on Facebook, the group, so that if you want to check it out later to kind of get ideas, you're welcome to do so. All right. So continue. So why tarot? So some of you are familiar with tarot decks, some of you are not. I just wanted to say tarot, I love tarot and oracle cards because they have such vivid images, and our brains are being wired to look around us and process different kinds of narratives and different kinds of images and constantly make up stories because we want to make sense of the world. So looking at a tarot will help us kind of form these images. You don't have to have a tarot deck in order to get these things. You could look up in the sky and look at the clouds and see patterns, or you can look at a mosaic and see these patterns emerge, and then try and understand or try and interpret it based on what you see in those images. So because this is kind of how we are wired, because we constantly need to process these things in order to understand the world around us. How to use tarot. So a lot of times tarot decks, they have those images which evoke a lot of mental imagery in us. So when you look at a picture, it is then going to start forming all these subsequent associated pictures in us. And also a lot of tarot cards have meanings associated with them, in which case words have meaning. So the words and the pictures combined is going to make your brain start sparking. Okay, this is what this means, this is what I think is happening, and so you start interpreting it in a certain way. So the question is, how is the reader, so you yourself, what kind of associations are you forming, and how are you using your intuition to move to that next step of, oh, this is what I think is happening. And the there's a lot of research going into what is intuition and how do people develop intuition, and the jury is still out there, but what people are saying is it's mainly expertise. So the more you read tarot, the more you do these kinds of things and start honing your intuition, the better you become at it. Just like an athlete knows, like if you're throwing a ball, where the ball is going to come, because they've done it so many times. So the more times you read, the more times you work on something, it's going to help you do it. All right. So then the last bit I want to talk about is why design a deck. And also these kind of posted these small snippets of videos on the Facebook group. So you're welcome to look at them on answering these questions. So why design a deck? A lot of times I think that our subconscious mind and our conscious mind are not talking to each other. And most of these times when you're meditating or maybe even standing in the shower is when you get those big revelations that happen. So designing a deck is going to help you to start understanding, okay, what does this mean for me? And then you doodle or write down a few words. And so kind of verbalizing what your subconscious or your unconscious is saying, and then that becomes a conscious entity. And then you're able to actually illustrate it, or you're able to give words to it, and then you understand
I'm
yourself
really
better.
sorry. Are we allowed to ask questions while you are talking, or will you leave time for questions?
Go for it. Ask questions.
Oh, how does this compare to like a mandala, if you know what do you know what a mandala is?
Yes, I do know what a
Oh,
mandala
sorry.
is.
Is that
No, no,
really
it's okay.
condescending?
No,
I'm
no, no, it's not
sorry if it is.
condescending. No, I was
Oh,
laughing because Victoria works on this project called
uh,
Nano Mandala with
can I
sand
ask how it
mandalas.
compares? Yeah, how would you compare it to that, if you would?
I would, in the sense, I think the meditative practice of allowing your when you're making the mandala, a lot of times the patterns emerge from it, and as you're working on it, I think those patterns emerge. So similar to that, when you're free drawing or doodling, I think that some of that practice comes in. But the mandala also has these very structured elements associated with it. So even though it is kind of the patterns emerge, you kind of need to follow a certain amount of structure and geometry. And I think that that is not there in the case of kind of designing your deck or something like that. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, yeah, I get, because I agree. When I did a mandala, the patterns definitely did emerge from it.
Yeah. And I think that these kinds of techniques and tools have been used for centuries in a lot of cultures. And I think we've just lost touch with it because we don't give ourselves space and time to kind of do that. And it's considered, oh, you're wasting your time. And it's more of actually something that's going to really help us be more in tune with ourselves. And I think we've just lost that art a little bit. So So here are some resources. And again, I can make these slides available to you, and also the links will be on the Facebook group. But so if you're completely unfamiliar with tarot and tarot decks, here is kind of a link to say a deck of um, different kinds of decks that are available. And the nice part about this website is it kind of lists the different decks that are there. and then you can just go click and look at the cards that are available in the deck. So, for example, they have a deck on cat people, and you can click on it, and then it'll kind of show you all the different cards that are available in that. So it gives you an idea of what kind of tarot decks are out there, and what kind of design elements are out there. I don't know why my screen is, I think it's because of Zoom, it's not refreshing as quickly. But anyway, these links are available to you, and it's mainly tarot.com and the different kinds of aesthetics and designs. So for example, there's a Chinese deck and a karma deck, and I know there's one on Indian goddesses and so on. So feel free to explore that to kind of give an idea of the flavor of different things. Um, the other thing that's emerged is a lot of people use the Rider Waite tarot deck, which is kind of almost the most commonly used deck, and they kind of do different modifications of it. For example, a lot of the illustrations in the Rider Waite are look white. So there's been a new melanization of the Rider Waite deck where they kind of added black and brown people into it and so on. So you can also get inspired by saying you have a template. I'm going to now um, modify it or interpret it based on my ideas. Some of these old tarot decks, like the Rider Waite, are no longer under copyright. So you could use some of those images and then transform them going forward. But please check the copyright if you're going to adopt any kind of elements from different decks that you're using. The other thing is interpretation. So aside from the images, you also need to have meanings. So there are a few sites which will also give you the basic meaning of some of these tarot. I would say if you're unfamiliar with tarot, don't get completely bogged down by it. Think of the image, see what speaks to you, and go with it. Or if you're using a book, a small booklet or something, then take one word or a couple of words and then use that as your jumping off point. So don't let that stop you, is kind of what I'm trying to say. So that was just our introduction piece. So we will now move into the actual challenge. So the idea of this particular day is for us to pick a theme of what your tarot deck is going to be about. So pick a topic that you're curious or super drawn to, something that you think that you can explore for a little while. Maybe you will spend some time Googling about it. Maybe you will spend some time reading papers about it. Maybe you're an expert in a certain field and you want to dive deep and use tarot as your lens to look at that particular field. For example, I'm a neuroscientist. So for me, the easy jumping off point was to pick neuroscience as my way, a lens to interpret tarot. But there are other lenses. For example, I could have picked Indian gods and goddesses as my way of interpreting tarot. I could have picked South Indian temples as a way of interpreting tarot. So there is different elements for you to think about when you are trying to pick a theme. So I know all of this is kind of abstract, so let's walk through an example. So here is a card on the left, which is the Magician card of the tarot. So this card sometimes can stand for agency, focus, and action. So the idea is you have the power to move forward. You have the power to act. And so instead of waiting for things to happen to you, this card in a reading would probably say you have the agency to act and do something. So for me as a neuroscientist, I interpret this as, oh, wow, for me, the action potential, which is the agency of the neuron to move or act. So that is the most important thing in terms of action for me. And so I designed a card where there's this action potential where this neuron is sending signals, which is essentially going to say, okay, now is the time, go forward, act. Um, and I incorporated things like when the action potential is being sent out, you cannot stop it. It's like a tsunami wave that's just moving the signal forward. So that's kind of why I kind of drew those waves. And it's a very quick action, and similar to the magician taking like a, waving the wand and something quickly happening. It's like a lightning bolt being striking. So it has some elements of the tarot. It has some elements of the neuroscience behind it. And so because I had some expertise in it, I was able to kind of move forward in terms of interpreting it. I just picked a different theme for this particular exercise. So I was thinking, okay, what else would I be interested in? I was thinking of medicinal plants. And so if I started doing a whole tarot card deck on different kinds of herbs or different kind of medicinal plants, I would probably think of, say, this thing called kratom, which is a medicinal plant that's supposed to give you focus and allow you to uh, focus on the things that are in front of you and move forward or take action. So that might be a theme where I have all these different medicinal plants and I'm going to then look at them through the lens of the tarot. So that's kind of where that is. So let's just give you an example of how you can maybe pick a theme. You can think of different things. You can think of the weather. You can think of climate change as an example of thing. I just as I was thinking of examples, I came across insects and I started getting really excited about it, because you can think of so many different species of insects, and how you can do a tarot lens on something like that. So I'm going to now put you into breakout rooms. Let's see, we have about 6 of you here. So maybe we don't need a breakout room. I'm just going to maybe do a thing where we can all share ideas. So let's discuss if you're really excited about a theme, and then, or if you feel like you don't have a theme in mind, what are you really curious about? Are you a cat person? Are you a dog person? Do you really think about like social justice all the time? So what is your curiosity? What is your thing? Or maybe you're an expert at something. And so these are some of the discussions we can have right now. And then maybe for about 5 minutes. And then we're going to jot down our ideas. And then hopefully that'll help you pivot towards your homework. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and maybe we can all discuss what ideas we might have.
If no one goes first, I do have an idea.
Go for it.
It's okay. So there's 2 suits. It's swords and plowshares, and I have 3 dominant images. One of them is the bathing stork, the bridled mare, and the spotted lizard. These have been strong themes for me. And here's the thing though, that's just like 5, that's already fairly ambitious. If I have 2 suits, that's 12 each. So that's 24 cards right there, if I go with 12 for a suit. And then if I have a major arcana with the spotted lizard, for example, maybe 10 of them. So I'm looking at 34 cards. That seems pretty ambitious at the moment.
So when you say the spotted lizard, are you thinking about different kinds of reptilian things or just the spotted lizard?
No. Well, actually, there's 3 dominant images: the bathing stork, the bridled mare, and the spotted lizard. Each of them has a theme that is a major arcana.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, the bridled mare might be strength, something like that. Yeah. But, I'm early.
It almost
It was
seems
just
like
a coincidence that I saw your...
Yeah, it almost seems like you can explore those kinds of animal images, because those 3 different things you mentioned have such vivid imagery associated with them.
Thank you.
So maybe you might want to think about different
Like
kinds
the raven,
of animals.
right?
Yeah,
The
different kinds of
raven.
animals and
Yeah.
what they signify.
I
And
agree.
that might be a way to go. So, Erin, did you want to share any ideas?
Sure. Yeah. My problem is my list is too long. So just lots of different ideas. I kind of started thinking about ships because I do a lot of canoeing and kayaking, or maybe just water and water travel. Um, Something I'm really interested in right now, but can't imagine how to like visualize it, is interpersonal neurobiology. Just something I read about a lot, but I don't know how that would translate into any visuals. And I've just been reading a lot of like Polish culture and Polish cookbooks. So I threw that down just to see what happens.
I think those are all vivid ones. I like the water. I think it's interesting also. It's so as Anna mentioned, there are like 22 major arcana cards, and then there are then another set of 52 cards, which kind of almost like a playing card deck. So if you think of water as a big theme, then the ships can be almost like a sub theme associated with it. So almost travel through water would be the major one, and then within it you could have ships incorporated is kind of a way for you to think about it maybe.
Right.
But as we mentioned, there's so many elements to it, so you need to be really excited about it in order to work on it. So it looks like the interpersonal neurobiology, I think, might be a way for you to explore how these cards are how people are going to respond to your cards,
Hmm.
because I think that's a big element of it, because a lot of tarot reading is done between two people. It's almost transactional. So what does it mean when I'm looking at your card or looking at your image? What do I feel about it? And then how do you interpret like my thoughts about that? So that can be a lens that you're looking at it that way, maybe.
That's cool. I like that way of blending this. Thanks.
Um, haven't we heard from someone? Preeti, I don't think we've heard from you.
Hi, Gaurav this side.
Oh,
I just
okay.
logged in
Hi.
from my wife's account.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, Anna. I was thinking about the cards based on the five elements. The main theme can be the five elements, and then there can be sub themes and the other variables depending upon the elements.
So a lot of times they tarot cards, they talk about the elements as well. So for example, the four suits have like the wands, the swords, the pentacles. One of them stands for the air, one of them stands for
Yeah,
earth, water, and so on. When you're thinking about elements, are you thinking of a little bit more detail, or is it just the very broad category of five elements?
uh, I was just as there are major arcana and minor arcana, so I was thinking about five main categories that would be based upon five elements. Then we can have the other variables like different things. Each card can have various elements which can further decode them.
Okay,
I'm just because I'm just thinking that that's the best I can get as of right now.
that's
I
okay.
have to
That's
work
okay.
on that. Yeah,
That's okay.
it's the instant one.
Yeah. It might be actually interesting if you dive a little deeper into more of the elements, in the sense of different aspects of fire, right? You can have like ember, you can have like the blue flame and the white flame. There are like different aspects of fire, different aspects of water. Water has different forms. So if you
Yeah,
start like maybe thinking more into what are the different forms of these elements, I think you'll get a more enriching theme out of it, maybe.
yeah, definitely, definitely. I will. Thank you.
Victoria, do you want to share?
Yeah, no, I actually dovetailing on Preeti's talking about five elements because I was thinking in similar ways. The five elements are very interesting because they connect to so many different cultures. And then the question to you would be less about how to illustrate them visually, but how to connect the five elements to the neuroscience aspects because they actually are connected to Chinese medicine or Ayurveda. All these different practices of indigenous medicines are very much looking at air, water, earth, fire. So I think it would be super interesting if you could make that connection for us.
So I mean, of course, we are composed of all the elements, right? I mean, it's not like we have one or the other. We are composed of all the elements, and maybe the way for us to think about it is heat. Instead of thinking of fire, we should think of heat and breathing and, like, oxygen processing and water processing. So almost getting into the physiological aspects of things, and that way you would then be able to connect. I guess people will be able to understand how much of their body is elemental in some ways, right? Because we have to process these external elements in order to be a human being, and then we realize that we are composed ourselves of heat and water, and it brings a different point of, when you take a cell out of the body, it still can maintain temperature. Even though they talk about body temperature, the cell by
Wow.
itself can maintain its own temperature. So where is that coming from? And, like, what is causing that? So that might be an interesting way to explore that, to kind of tease apart all these different parts that make that these different elements are actually making up your life.
Well,
So
it directly relates to neuroscience not being about the brain only, but
yes.
brain is a kind of a central place that then goes to all our other systems and elements. Elements seem to be the way to pull that in, is my point.
No, that's absolutely true. In fact, a lot of tarot interpretations, or even like instinctual, intuitive actions that we take, we talk about gut feeling, right? Or when you have
Mm.
butterflies in your stomach, or when your heart feels lighter. And we have all these expressions which are bodily expressions for
Mhm.
emotions, but it's actually the opposite. It's the bodily changes. So when you're having butterflies in your stomach, you're actually experiencing an internal body state change that is then interpreted by the brain as, oh, this means that I am feeling happy. Or when my heart feels lighter, this means that I'm feeling relieved. So your brain is actually sensing your body reactions and then saying, oh, this is what this means. So
Wow.
it's flipped. And that's the whole part of emotional processing, which is really exciting.
I
um,
love it. It's
which I
like,
get into deeper in the course, which I offer. Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes. Thank you.
Tiana, did you want to share anything?
Well, sir, as I'm completely new in it, and I just got a deck of gods and goddesses because I'm a quite spiritual person, though I'm quite young, but I do have this attraction towards the spirituality, and the main is Krishna for me. So, whatever I think and whatever I do, that is in terms of him, whatever I like. So Krishna is the main source of me to whom I can dedicate myself. But in terms of tarot, as there are so many of cards, I don't have any idea about major arcana, minor arcana, and all. But as I have seen, these are almost 52, and more than that, I have seen 77 cards even. So I'm a little bit confused that how I can show him up in so much of versatility.
Yeah,
That is, I'm facing the
I
challenge.
would start with the major arcana first. They're just 22 cards with broad themes, and then you would then worry about the rest. But then I can already visualize. So Krishna has different aspects. So there's the love aspect, there is the loyalty aspect, there is the bravery. So you can already start forming those kinds of, like, different aspects of the god, and think of how that is interpreted. And of course, there are already so many wonderful illustrations and paintings of Krishna depicting him in all these different forms. So I think you can start kind of thinking about those images as, what is courage or strength, what is balance. So when he is balancing, say, a mountain, all these different things
Yes.
you can start using as, these are the forms of Krishna I want to use in order to interpret these different ideas that are there in the first 22 major arcanas. Because a lot of people, especially in the tarot, they use the major cards as a major life events, and then the minor cards, some of
Mhm.
them they use as a, giving more nuance to it. So maybe you should start. That's how
Yes.
I started, only with 22, and now I'm thinking more about exploring further. So maybe instead of, a lot of times when you want to do the whole thing, it's very difficult to
Yes.
get started. It feels big. So I would start with the
Yes.
smaller 22 and then move to the larger deck, is kind of what I would suggest.
Oh, sure, sir. Thank you so much.
So let me share my screen again. And, all right. So I hope you got some ideas, and I will, as soon as this meeting is finished, there'll be an email that's coming out to you about your homework. So that'll kind of iterate on what you can do to maybe crystallize some of these ideas. So the next aspect is picking a look. So I want to continue with the medicinal plant theme and kind of ask you to start thinking as you're developing these things as to what your look is going to be. So is it going to be more like the pressed flowers kind of thing of a medicinal plant, or is it going to be more of a flower illustration kind of thing for the medicinal plant, is kind of maybe what you might want to think about. So we heard about Erin talk about water and ships. Is it going to be photographs? Is it going to be illustrations? So if she also mentioned that she's not an illustrator herself, so in which case will it be stock images? In which case, where will all those what has a lot of these free stock images that she could maybe use in order to pick a theme? Um, uh, Tiana spoke about Krishna, and in which case there are lots and lots of illustrations of Krishna. So, is she going to be picking more of a photographic ones, which are more like book illustrations, or is it pencil and sketch images? So you might want to start thinking about what look or aesthetic you feel drawn to in terms of what you're going to be doing. So what is it going to convey? And of course, are you going to be excited by this look? And will you have adequate images? And what is your aesthetic? So that is something that I did not spend as much time on when I was designing my own cards. All I knew is that I wanted to draw them. I actually started doing my cards because I'd been ignoring my drawing practice, so I kind of wanted to get back into it and painting. So that's kind of my one of my motivations. So maybe that would be a motivation for you if you want to kind of get into your drawing practice or something like that. So think about what your look of your card is going to be, and how you're going to execute them is something that you might want to keep at the back of your head. You don't want it to stop it from moving forward with your design, but keep it and in the back of your head. Maybe at some point you'll be like, this is the look I want to go for, and I want to collaborate with an illustrator or a designer. Maybe that's kind of where you'll end up, but that's fine. At this point, start thinking about what is exciting for you. So the homework for today is you might want to look at the video again. You're going to spend 10 minutes thinking about the theme that you most want to explore, and maybe pick one theme that is most you're calling out for you. You can share on Facebook if you like, in the group, and we can offer you feedback if you feel you're stuck. Ask yourself honestly how much you know about this theme. Maybe you want to jot down like, okay, these are all the different things that I know about this. So ask yourself honestly, and or how much you're willing to explore. So will you be able to spend like enough time, looking up books or looking up papers or Googling things about this that is going to allow you to invest that much in that theme. And then similarly for the look, what gets your brain animated? Are you more excited about cartoon like images? Are you more excited about landscapes? Are you more of a minimalistic person, or do you need to have like a really um, you know uh, a lot of things in the card for you to get excited about? So this is where I think looking at some decks on tarot.com might give you some idea of the different kinds of decks out there. And you might want to think about, okay, I want my deck to look like this or that. So that might be an exercise that you might want to look at. So are you going to need a few strokes or you need a rich image? So these are some questions that might help you guide through what kind of look that you're looking for. So here is a vision board I kind of put up for my medicinal plants example. And there's a Canva template for your vision board on Canva. So you can use that if you want. So the way it works is, so I have this mint kind of a thing here, and then it's going to have another kind of object over here within this kind of a card setting is kind of what I was thinking about. And I want to quickly show you the Canva, how to use the Canva template if you've not used it before. So, so here is one I kind of started creating for insects. So you can just drag and drop those things into those things. So if you feel like you need to have more inspiration for creating a vision board, you can start using something like this to kind of think about, okay, this is what I want my tarot elements to look like. So it's going to be illustrations, it's going to be photographs, you know, you can kind of start deciding. Maybe it's just textiles, so, or collages. So think about how your what is going to excite you the most in terms of the look of your tarot board. Okay, I'm going to stop for a few questions and yeah. If not, we will meet tomorrow at the same time, and tomorrow we'll talk about how to start associating in words with meaning, and we'll start doing some doodling exercises, and hopefully we'll start getting inspired about it. So
Darth, I have a kind of out of the box question. I don't want to go this route, but my creative medium is an audio, and I was just curious. I was kind of like spent some time thinking, like, could there be such a thing as an audio tarot? And I didn't really come up with anything, but just thought I would throw that out there to you as a thought experiment.
I think that would be fascinating, and I'm trying to figure out how you would execute it. The first thing I can think of is QR codes, and you kind of, you know, snap, and then you hear a tone. But I just think that's a little too complicated. I think it would have to be almost like a braille like thing where you touch it and things just like tones come out. Might be a really interesting way for you to, and I think that would have a great market.
I will keep dreaming on it.
Gaurav, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, I just want a few clarity about the elements. The elements, as you were talking about the relation with the brain patterns. So, as far as I believe or I know about the tarot, the elements, they have their different meaning depending upon the creator who created them, or it has to be the universal one. For the basically the element, whether they should, how should I put it? They should trigger same emotion for each and everyone, or it has to be coded one, as we said, it has to be interpreted in that way only. If you are having a fire, it does not mean it is going to burn you. It can also provide you light. It can show you the way. There can be number of meaning for a particular element.
Yeah, I think you don't have to stick with I think what you're talking about is fantastic, that, you know, fire can be looked at different angles. So it's your lens. So ultimately you are the lens of how you're going to be looking at something like this. So I don't think you need to stick with a set rule of thumb or something that's there.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Other questions? Everybody becomes so sophisticated. They're raising their hands and everything. It's like everyone is so used to Zoom now. So all right, so nice meeting all of you. So I hope you have some ideas to work on. So let's meet again tomorrow. And again, feel free to share on Facebook if you're stuck, and I'll keep monitoring that. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, sir.
Bye.